After getting fired, a sad black waitress gave her all money to a homeless man, not realizing that she had just bought the loyalty of the most dangerous man in Seoul. The rain came down in sheets, turning the Los Angeles streets into rivers of neon and despair. Fiona Wright stood outside Marcello's Italian restaurant, her uniform soaked through, holding a cardboard box containing 5 years of her life, a spare apron, a photo of her grandmother, and exactly 3 pens that actually worked. Inside the box, her final paycheck, $847.32, represented everything she had left in the world after her manager discovered she'd been giving free meals to elderly customers who couldn't afford to pay. "You're a liability, not a charity," he'd said, not even having the decency to look her in the eye. "Clean out your locker." 5 years of double shifts, Christmas mornings, and covering for people who called in sick. Gone because she'd committed the cardinal sin of human kindness. Fiona tucked the box under her arm and started walking, no destination in mind, just the desperate need to move before she broke down crying in front of the restaurant where she'd wasted half her 20s. 3 blocks down, huddled in the alcove of a closed bookstore, she saw him. A man wrapped in layers of dirty clothes, a cardboard sign propped against his knees. Hungry. Anything helps. God bless. What caught Fiona's attention wasn't the sign, Los Angeles was full of them, but his hands. Even through the grime and the rain, she could see they were young hands. Strong. The kind that didn't match the defeated slump of his shoulders. Fiona's grandmother's voice echoed in her head. "Baby girl, you never know when you're entertaining angels unaware." She'd said that every time she'd fed a stranger, sheltered someone in need, given away the last of what they had. Grandma Rose had died 3 years ago, leaving Fiona alone with those words and a faith in humanity that the world kept trying to beat out of her. She opened her final paycheck, $847.32. Enough for rent if she ate ramen for a month. Enough to keep her lights on. Enough to survive. But looking at this man in the rain, she thought about what surviving meant, about whether staying alive was worth it if you stopped being human in the process. Before she could think better of it, Fiona crossed the street. Up close, she could see more. He was young, maybe her age, maybe younger. His face was hidden beneath a hood and days of stubble, but his eyes, God, his eyes were wrong for a homeless man. Sharp, aware, calculating in a way that suggested he was seeing more than she realized. And on his neck, just visible above the collar of his jacket, was the edge of what looked like an intricate tattoo. "Hey," Fiona said softly, crouching down to his level. The man's eyes snapped to her, and for a split second she saw something flash across his face, surprise maybe, or recognition of something she couldn't name. "I'm sorry you're going through this. I got fired today, and this is literally all the money I have, but..." She held out the check, her hand trembling. "You need it more than I do." The man stared at the check like it was a weapon. "Miss, that's..." His voice was rough, probably from cold and rain, but underneath was an accent. Korean, maybe. "That's too much. I can't..." "Please," Fiona interrupted. "Take it, cash it tomorrow, get a meal, get somewhere warm. Just please let me do this one good thing today before the universe convinces me that kindness is stupid." She pressed the check into his hand, stood up before he could argue, and walked away. She didn't see his expression shift from shock to something deeper. Didn't see him stare at the check like it was the most valuable thing he'd ever held. Didn't see him pull out a phone, expensive, new, completely wrong for a homeless man, and make a call. She didn't see any of it because she was too busy crying as she walked home in the rain, wondering what the hell she was going to do now. Fiona's apartment was a studio in a building that generous people called vintage and honest people called falling apart. Rent was $1,400 a month, due in 6 days, and she now had exactly $0 to her name. She peeled off her wet uniform, threw it in the general direction of the hamper, and collapsed onto her bed, still wearing yesterday's clothes underneath. Her phone buzzed. Text from her best friend, Jasmine. "Girl, you okay? Your Instagram story looked rough. Right. She'd posted a tear-stained selfie with the caption, "When life hands you lemons, it waits until you're already drowning to throw them at your face." Very dramatic, very Fiona. She typed back, "Fired, broke, possibly homeless in a week, living the dream." Jasmine's response was immediate. "Coming over. Wine and bad decisions required." 20 minutes later, Jasmine burst through the door with 2 bottles of cheap wine and a pizza. "Okay, talk. What happened?" Fiona explained it all. The elderly customers, the free meals, getting caught, getting fired. And then, because she was already spilling everything, she told Jasmine about giving away her last paycheck. "You gave a homeless man your entire paycheck?" Jasmine's voice went up 3 octaves. "Fiona, baby, I love you, but are you insane? How are you going to pay rent?" "I don't know," Fiona admitted, taking a long drink of wine straight from the bottle. "But Jazz, you should have seen him. He was so young and there was something about him. I can't explain it. I just knew I had to help." "That something was probably hypothermia and desperation," Jasmine said, but her voice was gentle. "Look, I get it. You're Grandma Rose's granddaughter. You help people. It's who you are, but babe, you can't save everyone, especially when you need saving yourself." They drank wine and ate pizza and brainstormed ridiculous money-making schemes until midnight. By the time Jasmine left, Fiona had applied to 15 jobs, signed up for 3 gig economy apps, and accepted that she'd probably have to move back to her mother's house in Riverside. The thought made her want to vomit. She fell asleep still wearing her clothes, phone clutched in her hand, dreaming about sharp eyes and neck tattoos and rain. Fiona woke to pounding on her door at 7 a.m. Groaning, head throbbing from cheap wine, she stumbled to answer it. A man in an expensive suit stood in her hallway looking wildly out of place, next to Mrs. Chen's collection of plastic flowers and the water stain that looked like Jesus if you squinted. "Fiona Wright?" the man asked in accented English. "Who's asking?" Fiona was immediately suspicious. Men in suits at 7 a.m. never brought good news. "My name is Park Ji-hoon. I represent Mr. Choi. He would like to extend an invitation for breakfast this morning. A car is waiting downstairs." He held out a business card. Heavy cardstock, minimalist design, just a name and phone number. "I don't know any Mr. Choi," Fiona said, trying to close the door. Ji-hoon's hand stopped it gently but firmly. "You helped him last night, in the rain. He wishes to thank you personally." Something in Ji-hoon's expression suggested this wasn't a request she should refuse. "Please, Miss Wright, Mr. Choi doesn't make many personal invitations. It would be unwise to decline." The word unwise hung in the air like a threat wrapped in politeness. Fiona's grandmother had taught her to help people, but she'd also taught her to recognize danger. This man screamed danger, but curiosity and the memory of those sharp eyes overrode her sense of self-preservation. "Give me 10 minutes, she said. She threw on jeans and her nicest sweater, the burgundy one Grandma Rose had bought her for Christmas 3 years ago, brushed her teeth, attempted to do something with her natural hair that had dried into chaos overnight. In the mirror, she looked exhausted, broke, and slightly terrified. Perfect. The car waiting downstairs was a black BMW with tinted windows. Ji-hoon opened the door for her, and Fiona slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her entire apartment. They drove in silence through early morning Los Angeles, heading toward downtown. Fiona tried to memorize the route, some instinct telling her she might need an escape plan. They pulled up to a restaurant she recognized, Hanjung-sik, a Korean fine dining establishment she'd walked past 100 times but never entered, because even looking at the menu made her bank account weep. Ji-hoon led her inside, through the empty dining room to a private room in the back. And there he was, the homeless man from last night, except he wasn't homeless at all. He was clean, dressed in black slacks and a fitted black shirt that showed the full extent of the tattoo on his neck, a dragon that seemed to writhe with his pulse. His hair was styled, his face shaved, and those sharp eyes were even more intense in the morning light. He was, Fiona realized with a jolt, absolutely beautiful and absolutely dangerous. Miss Wright, he said, standing as she entered. His voice was different now, cultured, educated, the roughness from last night completely gone. Thank you for coming. Please sit. Fiona remained standing. You want to explain what the hell is going on? Why you were pretending to be homeless? Why you brought me here? A slight smile curved his lips. Direct, I appreciate that. My name is Choi Sung-hyun, and I wasn't pretending. I was testing something. Testing what? Human nature. Compassion. Whether anyone in this city would help a stranger without expecting something in return. He gestured to the table. You please sit. I'll explain everything. You have my word you're safe here. The word of a man who'd lied about being homeless. Worth nothing. But Fiona sat anyway because what choice did she have? She was already here, already involved in something she didn't understand. Sung-hyun poured tea with practiced grace, the kind that suggested expensive upbringing and cultural traditions. I run an organization, he said carefully, import-export primarily, but I have other interests, other responsibilities. And in my world, trust is rare, genuine kindness even rarer. You're in the mob, Fiona said flatly. It wasn't a question. The expensive car, the private room, the way Ji-hoon had made his invitation sound like a threat, it all added up to organized crime. Seung-hyun's eyebrows rose. You're very perceptive. I'm not an idiot. So what do you want from me? You want your money back? Because I don't have it. I gave it to you. That was the whole point. I don't want the money back. He pushed the check across the table. It was still there, uncashed. I want to offer you a job. Fiona stared at him. A job? Yes. I own several legitimate businesses. Restaurants, import companies, real estate. I need someone to manage the hospitality division. Someone who understands service, who treats people with dignity regardless of their circumstances. Someone like you. You don't know anything about me. I know you gave a homeless stranger your last dollar despite being broke and jobless. I know you were fired for feeding people who couldn't pay. I know you have a degree in hospitality management from UCLA that you earned while working full-time. I know you're 3 weeks from eviction and too proud to ask for help. He leaned forward. I know everything about you, Fiona Wright, and I'm offering you a way out. The fact that he'd researched her should have been terrifying. Instead, it was oddly flattering in a deeply concerning way. What's the catch? The catch is that you work for me, in my world. With all the complications that entails, you'll be well paid, $120,000 a year to start, full benefits. But you'll see things, know things, be associated with me and my organization, associated with a criminal, associated with a man who takes care of his people, who rewards loyalty, who doesn't forget kindness. His dark eyes held hers. You could walk away right now, take your check, find another waitressing job, struggle for years to pay off debt and build something, or you could take a chance on something different. Fiona should have walked away, should have run. Instead, she heard herself say, what exactly would I be managing? Seung-hyun's smile was slow and satisfied, like he'd known all along what she'd choose. 5 restaurants across Los Angeles. You'd oversee operations, hire staff, ensure quality. The business is completely legitimate. You'd be an employee, not a criminal. Your conscience can rest easy. And if I see something illegal, you won't. I keep my world separate. The restaurants are clean. I promise you that. He extended his hand across the table. Do we have a deal, Fiona Wright? She looked at his hand, strong, scarred across the knuckles, definitely belonging to someone who'd fought and won. Looked at the check still sitting between them, her last lifeline that he'd never even cashed. Looked at those dark eyes that seemed to see right through every wall she'd ever built. One condition, she said, you tell me the real reason you were out there. The real reason you're offering me this. because I don't buy that it's just about kindness. Men like you don't build empires on sentiment. Sung-hyun was quiet for a long moment. Then, my mother was homeless for 2 years before she died. I was 10. We lived on the streets of Seoul, and people walked past us like we were invisible, like we were trash. The few who helped, who saw us as human, I never forgot them. His voice was carefully neutral, but pain bled through the edges. I test people sometimes. See who still has humanity left. Last night, you were the only one. 37 people walked past me. You were the only one who stopped. Fiona felt something crack open in her chest. I'm sorry about your mother. Don't be. She taught me everything I needed to survive, including the value of recognizing rare people when you find them. He extended his hand again. So, do we have a deal? Fiona took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and electric. We have a deal. But Seong-hyun, if you're lying to me, if this goes sideways, I will burn your empire to the ground. His laugh was genuine, transforming his face into something younger, lighter. I believe you, which is exactly why I want you working for me. The first restaurant was in Koreatown, a sleek modern space called Moonlight that served traditional Korean cuisine with contemporary flair. Sung-hyun's driver, not Ji-hoon, but another serious man in a suit, dropped Fiona off at 9 a.m. on Monday morning with a key card, employee handbook, and instructions to make it better. Inside, she found chaos. Servers arguing in Korean, a line cook screaming at a dishwasher, the manager nowhere to be found. Fiona stood in the doorway, took a deep breath, and channeled every lesson Grandma Rose had ever taught her about leadership and grace under pressure. Excuse me, she said loudly. The arguing continued. Excuse me. The kitchen fell silent. 20 pairs of eyes turned to stare at her. The new girl, the black woman walking into a Korean restaurant like she owned it. She could see the skepticism, the resentment, the immediate dismissal. My name is Fiona Wright. As of today, I'm your new operations manager. I know some of you are wondering what qualifications I have. Here's what you need to know. I've worked in restaurants since I was 16. I've been a server, a hostess, a line cook, and a manager. I've handled health inspections, food critics, and drunks who throw up in the bathroom. And I guarantee I've worked longer, harder shifts than any of you have ever imagined. She walked further into the kitchen, meeting eyes, refusing to look away. I'm not here to make your lives harder. I'm here to make this place run smoothly, treat staff fairly, and serve food that makes people want to come back. If you can get on board with that, we'll do great. If not, there's the door. Silence. Then a young server, couldn't have been more than 19, started clapping. Slowly, others joined in. Not everyone. Some walked out. But enough stayed that Fiona knew she could work with this. The manager finally appeared. Min Seo, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and an even sharper tongue. You're the boss's new project, she said in accented English. I've seen plenty of his projects come and go. I'm not a project, Fiona said calmly. I'm your supervisor, and we're going to make this place successful whether you like me or not. Now show me the books. I want to see everything. Inventory, payroll, customer feedback, health inspection reports. Everything. They spent the next 6 hours going through operations. Fiona discovered discrepancies in inventory, scheduling that made no sense, and a payroll system that was definitely skimming off the top. By 5 p.m., she'd fired 2 people, promoted 3, and restructured the entire schedule. Min Seo watched with grudging respect. You're better than I expected, the older woman admitted. Most people the boss brings in don't last a week. Too soft. But you, she gave Fiona an appraising look. You have steel in you. My grandmother taught me that kindness and strength aren't opposites, Fiona said. You can be both. You should be both. Seong-hyun appeared just as Fiona was leaving, stepping out of the kitchen covered in sweat and fryer grease. He looked infuriatingly perfect in a charcoal suit, not a hair out of place while she felt like she'd been through a war. How was your first day? He asked with that slight smile that was becoming familiar. I fired your manager's nephew for stealing and your head server for sexual harassment. If that's a problem, I'll leave right now. Fiona crossed her arms, defensive. It's not a problem. It's why I hired you. He gestured to his car. Let me drive you home. We should talk about the other restaurants. Fiona should have said no, should have maintained professional boundaries, but her feet hurt. She was exhausted, and the thought of waiting for the bus was enough to make her want to cry. Fine, but we stop for food. I'm starving. They ended up at a taco truck in Inglewood, sitting on the hood of his BMW eating carne asada like it was normal for a crime boss and his new employee to have an impromptu picnic. Sung-hyun had ditched his jacket, sleeves rolled up to reveal more tattoos running up his forearms, intricate patterns she couldn't quite make out in the streetlight. You're staring, he said without looking at her. Your tattoos, what do they mean? They tell a story, my story, where I came from, what I've served, who I've lost. He turned his arm so she could see better. This one is for my mother, this one for my first kill. Your first kill? Fiona dropped her taco. I told you what I am. I don't hide it. His eyes met hers, unflinching. Does that scare you? Yes, she admitted. But also, no, I don't know. You're confusing. Confusing how? You run a criminal empire, but you test people's kindness by pretending to be homeless. You have tattoos commemorating murder, but you fund soup kitchens. You're dangerous, but you eat tacos off a food truck in Inglewood. I can't figure you out. Maybe that's the point. Maybe I'm exactly as complicated as the world made me. He finished his taco, wiped his hands with deliberate precision. Tell me about your grandmother. The subject changed through her. Why? Because you mentioned her, and because people who help strangers in the rain usually learned it somewhere. So Fiona told him about Grandma Rose, who'd raised her after Fiona's parents died in a car accident when she was 8, about the tiny house in Riverside that always smelled like cornbread and always had room for one more at the table, about learning to cook at her grandmother's elbow, learning that food was love made tangible, about Rose's death 3 years ago and how Fiona had fallen apart, moved to LA to escape the memories, and spent the last 3 years just surviving. She sounds like she was remarkable, Seung-hyun said softly. She was. She'd have liked you, I think. She always said you could tell a person's character by how they treat people who can't do anything for them. What's your verdict? On my character? Fiona looked at him, really looked, at the expensive clothes and dangerous tattoos, but also at the way he'd listened without interrupting, the gentleness in his hands despite their violent history, the grief in his eyes that matched her own. I think you are someone who's been hurt badly and decided to become dangerous so it couldn't happen again. But underneath, you're still the 10-year-old boy who loved his mother and remembers everyone who showed him kindness. Seung-hyun went very still. You see too much. Occupational hazard. Waitresses learn to read people. She climbed off the hood. Thank you for dinner and the job, and not being a complete psychopath despite the murder tattoos. His laugh followed her as she walked toward her building. She didn't see him wait until she was safely inside. Didn't see him make a call, voice sharp, ordering increased security for her building. Didn't see the way he touched the spot where she'd sat on his car hood, like he could still feel the warmth. She didn't see any of it because she was too busy falling onto her bed, mind spinning with thoughts of dark eyes and neck tattoos and the strange, impossible feeling that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't begin to understand. 3 weeks later, Fiona had transformed Moonlight from chaotic to efficient. Revenue was up 30%, staff turnover had dropped to 0, and food critics who'd previously ignored the place were suddenly writing glowing reviews. She'd done it all while maintaining rigid professional distance from Seung-hyun, who had an infuriating habit of appearing at random times to check on operations. You're here again, Fiona said without looking up from inventory sheets. She'd developed a sixth sense for his presence, the way the air changed, the way staff suddenly stood straight. I own the place. I'm allowed to visit. You visit 3 times a week. That's not checking operations. That's stalking. I prefer to call it invested interest. He leaned against her desk, too close. He was always too close, invading her space with his expensive cologne and magnetic presence. Have dinner with me. Not work, just dinner. No. Why not? Because you're my boss. Because it's inappropriate. Because you're a criminal. Pick a reason. I'm technically not your direct supervisor. The company is structured so Seung-hyun, she finally looked up, meeting those dark eyes that still made her pulse race despite her best efforts. No. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, are you afraid of me? Yes. Good. You should be. I'm a dangerous man. I'm not afraid because you're dangerous. I'm afraid because I like you. And that's a problem. Seung-hyun's expression shifted. Surprise, pleasure, something deeper. Why is that a problem? Because this can't happen. Because you're you and I'm me. Because I finally have a good mind and stability and I can't risk it for, she gestured vaguely between them. For what? Say it. For whatever this is, this tension, this thing where you look at me like I'm the most fascinating person you've ever had, and I have to remind myself that you've probably killed people with those hands. 7 people, he said casually, if we're being specific, all of them men who'd hurt people I cared about, all of them deserving. That doesn't make it better, doesn't it? Would you rather I'd let them keep hurting people? Keep destroying lives? He moved closer, and Fiona's back hit the wall. She hadn't even realized she'd been retreating. Fiona, I'm not a good man. I've done terrible things. I'll probably do terrible things again. But with you, he stopped, jaw clenched. You make me want to be better. I'm not your redemption arc. I'm not here to fix you. I'm not asking you to fix me. I'm asking you to have dinner with me, to give me a chance to show you that I'm more than my worst moments. His hand came up, hovering near her face, but not quite touching. Please. Fiona's resolve crumbled. One dinner, but if you pull any mob boss nonsense, I'm out. Deal. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Dress nice. He backed away, that slight smile playing at his lips. I'll make it worth your while. After he left, Fiona texted Jasmine. Help, I'm going on a date with my criminal boss, and I need an intervention. Jasmine's response? Honey, you needed an intervention the moment you gave him your last dollar. Now you're just committing to the insanity. What are you wearing? The date turned out to be a private dinner on the rooftop of one of Seung-hyun's buildings, overlooking downtown Los Angeles. String lights transformed the space into something magical. A table was set with actual china and flowers, and more forks than Fiona knew what to do with. And Seung-hyun, in a fitted black shirt and slacks that should have been illegal, stood waiting with champagne and a smile that made her forget every reason this was a bad idea. You said not to pull mob boss nonsense, Fiona accused. This is literally a scene from a Mafia movie. I wanted to impress you. Mission accomplished. I'm terrified and impressed in equal measure. Dinner was 7 courses, each more incredible than the last. Seung-hyun had hired a private chef who apparently knew Fiona's favorite foods, how she didn't want to know, and created a menu that was part Korean, part Southern soul food, part pure decadence. They talked about everything and nothing, about growing up poor, about loss, about the strange paths that had led them both to this moment. Tell me something nobody knows about you, Seung-hyun said over dessert. I wanted to be a chef, not a hospitality manager. A chef, but culinary school was too expensive, and by the time I could have afforded it, I'd convinced myself I was too old to start over. You're 26. That's not too old for anything, says the man who probably runs a criminal empire from his phone. I'm 28, and I did start over. When my mother died, I could have stayed in Seoul, stayed small. Instead, I came here, built something, became someone. He leaned forward. It's never too late to become who you're meant to be. And who am I meant to be? I don't know, but I want to find out. I want to be there while you figure it out. Something in Fiona's chest cracked open. This man, this dangerous, beautiful, impossible man, looked at her like she contained universes. like her dreams mattered, like she mattered. I should go, she said, standing abruptly. This is too much. You're too much. Seong-hyun stood too, moving around the table with predatory grace. Too much how? Too perfect, too attentive, too everything. Men like you don't exist. And if they do, they don't look at women like me the way you're looking at me right now. Women like you? Black, broke, ordinary. I'm a waitress you met on the street, Sung-hyun, not some glamorous woman worthy of rooftop dinners and champagne. His expression darkened. Don't do that. Don't diminish yourself. You're the most extraordinary person I've ever met, and your race and bank account have nothing to do with it. Then what does? You gave a stranger everything you had without hesitation. You see people, really see them, when the rest of the world looks through them. You rebuilt my restaurant in 3 weeks through sheer force of will and competence. You're brilliant and kind and strong, and you look at me like I'm human instead of a monster. He closed the distance between them. That's what makes you extraordinary. Not your resume. You. Fiona felt tears prick her eyes. I don't know how to do this. How to be with someone like you. You think I know how to be with someone like you? I've spent my adult life surrounded by violence and betrayal and calculating alliances. I don't know how to be gentle, how to be good. But Fiona, I want to learn with you. She should have left, should have protected herself. Instead, she reached up and traced the tattoo on his neck, the dragon that had caught her attention that first rainy night. Tell me about this one. His breath caught. It represents transformation, the dragon that rises from nothing to become powerful. My mother's favorite story. She'd be proud of you. I don't know about that. I've done things she'd hate. But you've also done things she'd love. The soup kitchens, the scholarships, the second chances you give people. Fiona's hand dropped to his chest, feeling his heartbeat through the thin fabric. You're not just your worst moments, Seung-hyun. You are all of it. The violence and the kindness, the danger and the gentleness. All of it. He kissed her then, and it was nothing like Fiona expected. It was soft, tentative, like he was afraid she'd break or disappear. She kissed him back, pouring 3 weeks of tension and longing into it, and felt him respond, hands sliding into her hair, pulling her closer, deepening the kiss until they were both breathless. When they finally broke apart, Seung-hyun rested his forehead against hers. Stay, tonight, just to sleep, just to be close. I promise I won't push for more. I don't want to be alone tonight. Seung-hyun, please, I'm asking, not ordering. You can say no, but Fiona, I've been alone my entire life. And tonight with you, I don't want to be. She should have said no, should have maintained boundaries. Instead, okay, but I'm sleeping in your shirt because this dress is not comfortable for overnight wear. His smile was brilliant. Deal. Seung-hyun's penthouse was masculine minimalism. All clean lines and expensive furniture and windows overlooking the glittering city. But there were personal touches. Photos of a woman who had to be his mother. Books in Korean and English. And in one corner, a small shrine with candles and incense and a photo of the same woman, younger, smiling. You honor her, Fiona said softly. Every day. Everything I do is for her memory. He gave her one of his shirts, soft, expensive cotton that smelled like him, and Fiona changed in his bathroom while trying not to have a panic attack about the fact that she was spending the night with a man she'd known for 3 weeks. A criminal. Her boss. This was insane. But when she emerged and found him already in bed, looking younger and more vulnerable without his armor of suits and confidence, insanity seemed reasonable. They lay facing each other in the darkness, not touching, just existing in the same space. Tell me about your first kill, Fiona whispered. She didn't know why she asked. Maybe because she needed to know all of him, not just the parts he showed the world. Seung-hyun was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I was 17. A man had been hurting the women in our neighborhood, young girls. The police didn't care because we were immigrants, poor, invisible. So I handled it. How did you feel after? Sick, powerful, terrified, like I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. His eyes found hers in the darkness. Does that disgust you? It should, but no, you protected people who couldn't protect themselves. That's not evil. That's just complicated. You're the only person who's ever said that, who's ever tried to understand instead of just judge. Everyone's more than their worst moment, even you. He pulled her closer then, and Fiona went willingly, tucking herself against his chest and listening to his heartbeat. Strong, steady, real. They fell asleep like that, two broken people finding unexpected comfort in each other. Fiona woke to her phone buzzing insistently. Jasmine's name flashed on the screen along with 15 missed calls. Panic spiked through her as she answered. Where the hell have you been? Jasmine's voice was frantic. I've been calling for hours. I'm fine. I'm at... Fiona stopped, realizing Seung-hyun was already awake, watching her with dark, concerned eyes. I'm safe. What's wrong? Someone broke into your apartment last night, tore the place apart. The police are here. Fiona, they left a message. On your wall. In blood. Ice flooded Fiona's veins. What did it say? Jasmine's voice dropped to a whisper. It said, stay away from Choi or die. Seung-hyun was out of bed instantly, phone to his ear, barking orders in rapid Korean. Fiona sat frozen, trying to process. Someone had threatened her, had been in her home. Because of him. Get dressed, Seung-hyun said, voice cold and controlled in a way she hadn't heard before. You're not going back there. You're staying here where I can protect you. Protect me, Seung-hyun. This happened because of you, because someone saw us together. I know, which is why I need you safe. Please, Fiona, let me handle this. Handle it how? By killing whoever did this? By starting a war? His silence was answer enough. No, I won't let you kill people because of me. I won't have that blood on my hands. It won't be on your hands. It'll be on mine, where it always is. He cupped her face gently, and the contrast between his tenderness and his words made her want to scream. Fiona, you're mine now, under my protection, and I protect what's mine with everything I have. I'm not yours. I'm not anyone's. I'm just me, and this is crazy, and I need to go home. You can't go home. It's not safe. Please, just trust me. Trust a man who'd lied about being homeless, who killed people, who'd pulled her into a world of violence and danger. Trust him. I need to think. I need space. Her phone rang again. Unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. A voice, electronically distorted. Leave Choi Seung-hyun, or we take everything from you. Your gym, your friends, your life. You have 48 hours to decide. The line went dead. Fiona stared at her phone, hands shaking. Seung-hyun took it gently, listened to something she couldn't hear, probably had the number traced already, and his expression went murderous. Pack a bag, he said quietly. We're leaving LA. What? No, I have work. I have responsibilities. You have a target on your back, and until I eliminate it, you are not safe here. His voice brokered no argument. Please, Fiona, let me keep you safe. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle it herself. But the fear in her chest was real, and so was the blood on her apartment wall. Where are we going? Somewhere they won't find you. Somewhere I can figure out who's threatening you and end them permanently. They should have called the police, should have handled this legally. But Fiona looked into Seung-hyun's eyes and knew he was going to kill whoever had threatened her. And God help her, she didn't want to stop him. The somewhere turned out to be a beach house in Malibu, tucked away from prying eyes with ocean views and enough security to protect the president. Seung-hyun's people swept the place, set up perimeters, and generally treated it like a military operation. Fiona sat on the deck, wrapped in a blanket, trying to process how her life had gone from fired waitress to potential murder victim in less than a month. They're from a rival organization, Seung-hyun said, joining her on the deck. The Jade Dragons. They've been pushing into my territory for months. Saw you with me, decided to use you as leverage. So this is about business, not me. You are my business now. They know hurting you hurts me. He lit a cigarette, offered her one. She declined. I'm ending this. Tonight. They've declared war. I'm finishing it. How many people will die? As many as necessary. No hesitation, no apology. And what about after? What happens when you kill their leaders and their lieutenants decide to come after me for revenge? What happens when this cycle just continues? Seung-hyun took a long drag, exhaled smoke into the ocean breeze. Then I kill them too, and anyone else who threatens you, until they understand that touching you means extinction. That's not a solution. That's just more violence. It's the only solution I know. He stubbed out the cigarette, turned to face her. Fiona, in my world, you show weakness and you die. You let threats go unpunished and everyone thinks they can take from you. I can't let that happen. Won't let that happen. Not when it's you at risk. What if I asked you not to do this, to find another way? I'd tell you there is no other way. I'd tell you that I'm sorry, but this is who I am. This is what I do. They sat in silence, the gulf between them suddenly immense. Fiona had known what he was, had accepted it in the abstract. But facing the reality, the actual violence he was about to commit in her name, was different. I can't be with someone who kills people, she said quietly. Even if it's to keep you alive, even then, especially then, because that makes me complicit. Seung-hyun nodded slowly, like he'd expected this. Then after tonight, you won't hear from me again. I'll make sure you're protected, discreetly, from a distance. You can go back to your life. But Fiona, I can't let them threaten you and do nothing. I can't be that weak, not even for you. He left her there on the deck, and Fiona heard him inside making calls, assembling his people, preparing for war. And she sat with the ocean crashing below and wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Seung-hyun left at midnight with Ji-hoon and 6 other men, all armed, all wearing expressions that promised violence. He stopped to look at Fiona one last time. If I don't come back, don't, she interrupted. Don't say goodbye like that. If I don't come back, he continued, everything I own goes to charitable foundations in my mother's name. You'll be taken care of, protected. The restaurants are yours if you want them. And Fiona, he moved closer. Meeting you was the best moment of my life, even if it's the last. Then he was gone, and Fiona was left with guards and silence and growing terror that she'd never see him again. The hours crawled, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Fiona couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, just paced and prayed to Grandma Rose's God that she didn't believe in anymore. Prayed that Seung-hyun would come back, that he wouldn't be killed because of her, that somehow, impossibly, this would work out. At 4:37 a.m., headlights cut through the darkness. Fiona's heart stopped as she recognized Seung-hyun's car, waited, watched. And then he was there, bloody, exhausted, but alive. So alive, she ran to him, and Eddie caught at her, holding her tight enough to hurt. It's done, he said into her hair. They're neutralized. You're safe. Neutralized, she repeated. That's a nice word for murdered. The leaders are dead. The organization dissolved. They'll never threaten you again. How many? 4, just the ones who directly authorized the threat. He pulled back to look at her. I did what I had to do, and I'd do it again. But Fiona, I'm done. After tonight, I'm out. Out? Out of this life, the violence, the criminal operations. I'm liquidating everything, going completely legitimate. It'll take time, but his voice was raw, honest. I don't want to lose you. And if staying with you means becoming someone different, someone better, then that's what I'll do. Fiona stared at him, looking for the lie. But his eyes, those dark, dangerous eyes, held only truth. You'd give up your empire? For me? I'd give up everything for you. Because that night in the rain, You saw a homeless stranger and gave him everything you had. No one has ever looked at me like that, like I was worth saving. And Fiona, you saved me. Not just my life, but my soul. She should have made him prove it, should have demanded time and evidence and guarantees. Instead, she kissed him, hard and desperate in claiming. Because life was short and dangerous and unpredictable, and this man had killed for her and was willing to change for her, and maybe that was as close to love as people like them got. If you're lying, she said against his lips, if you're playing me, I will destroy you. I believe you, which is exactly why I'm telling the truth. The transition took 6 months. Sung Hyun kept his promise, slowly divesting from criminal operations while strengthening legitimate businesses. There were complications, people who didn't want to let him go, rivals who saw opportunity in his withdrawal. But he handled it all with ruthless efficiency, never letting Fiona see the worst of it. She didn't ask for details, just trusted that he was keeping his word. Meanwhile, she'd expanded to managing all 5 restaurants, hiring staff, creating programs that gave formerly incarcerated people second chances. She'd even started teaching cooking classes on weekends, her own small culinary dream coming true. They were having dinner at Moonlight when Seong-hyun slid a folder across the table. What's this? Fiona asked. Proof, documentation showing all criminal ties severed, every operation sold or shut down. I'm clean. Completely legitimate. He looked nervous for the first time since she'd known him. I kept my promise. Fiona opened the folder, scanned documents she barely understood. Corporate dissolution papers, asset transfers, legal agreements. You really did it. I did it for you, for us, for the possibility of a future that doesn't involve looking over our shoulders. He reached across the table, took her hand. Fiona Wright, I love you. I've loved you since you gave a homeless stranger your last dollar. I've loved you through every argument and complication and moment of doubt. And now I'm asking, will you build a life with me? A real life without violence or danger or secrets? Fiona felt tears prick her eyes. You're proposing? Not yet. First, I need you to trust that I've changed, that I can be the man you deserve. Seung-hyun, you've always been that man. You just needed a reason to believe it yourself. He came around the table, pulled her up, and kissed her like she was oxygen. I love you, he said between kisses. I love you. I love you. I love you too, my impossible, dangerous, reformed criminal boyfriend who I met while giving away my last dollar. That was the best investment you ever made. Yeah, Fiona said, laughing through tears. Yeah, it really was. 1 year later, they were married in a small ceremony that combined Korean and African American traditions. Jasmine was maid of honor, Ji-hoon was best man, and Mrs. Chen from Fiona's old apartment building cried through the entire thing. Seung-hyun wore a traditional Korean hanbok. Fiona wore a dress that Grandma Rose would have loved, and they exchanged vows that promised honesty, partnership, and love through whatever complications life threw at them. The restaurants flourished. Seung-hyun's legitimate businesses thrived, and Fiona finally enrolled in culinary school part-time, pursuing the dream she'd given up on. They bought a house in View Park, adopted 2 rescue boys, and slowly built the kind of life neither of them had thought possible. Sometimes, late at night, Fiona would trace the tattoos on Seung-hyun's skin, the dragon, the memorial to his mother, the new one he'd gotten after they met, her name in Korean characters over his heart. Do you regret it? She'd ask, giving up everything. I didn't give up everything, he'd say. I traded violence for peace, power for partnership, an empire for a home. That's not loss. That's wisdom. And Fiona would think about that rainy night, about a homeless stranger and a final paycheck in a moment of kindness that changed everything. About how sometimes the worst days lead to the best lives. About how love doesn't always look like fairy tales. Sometimes it looks like blood and danger and impossible choices that somehow work out. 2 years after their wedding, Fiona opened her own restaurant, Rose's Kitchen, named for her grandmother. It serves soul food and Korean cuisine side by side, a fusion of their 2 worlds. On opening night, she stood with Hyun, looking at the line of people waiting to get in, and felt Grandma Rose's presence like a warm hand on her shoulder. She'd be proud, Hyun said, like he could read her mind. She'd be horrified I married a criminal. Former criminal. I'm completely reformed now. Ask anyone. You still have a gun in the nightstand. Old habits. Plus, it makes me feel better knowing I can protect you if needed. Fiona rolled her eyes but smiled. Because yes, he still had dangerous instincts, still scared people when he wanted to, still had the coiled danger of someone who'd survived the streets of Seoul and the criminal underworld of Los Angeles. But he'd also learned to be gentle, to be present, to be exactly what she needed when she needed it. They cut the ribbon together, and as the first customers filed in, Fiona thought about that cardboard sign. Hungry. Anything helps. God bless. Thought about how she'd given in everything, expecting nothing, and received everything in return. That night, lying in bed in their beautiful house with their rescue dogs snoring at their feet, Seung-hyun pulled out something from his nightstand. Not the gun, but a worn, creased check for $847.32, preserved in a protective sleeve. You kept it, Fiona breathed. I framed it, hung it in my office. It's a reminder of the moment my life changed. The moment I met someone who saw a homeless stranger and gave him everything she had. He kissed her softly. That's the kind of love that changes the world, Fiona. You changed mine. We changed each other's. That's how love works, not fixing each other, but growing together. Are you happy? He asked. Really happy? Fiona looked around their bedroom, at the life they'd built, at this man who'd been willing to burn his empire to the ground for her. Thought about the scared woman who'd given away her last dollar not knowing it would lead to this. I'm happy. Terrifyingly, impossibly, completely happy. Good, because I have something to tell you. Her heart stopped. What? Is someone threatening us again? Do we need to? We're pregnant. Fiona's world tilted. What? How do you? You left a pregnancy test in the bathroom trash. 3 days ago, positive. I've been waiting for you to tell me. His smile was brilliant, transforming his face. Are you happy about it? Tears flooded Fiona's eyes. She hadn't known how to tell him, had been terrified about bringing a child into their complicated life. But looking at him now, this man who'd learned to be good, to be gentle, to be everything she needed, she knew it would be okay. I'm terrified and thrilled and so happy. We're having a baby. His hand found her still flat stomach, reverent and gentle. A tiny human made from a homeless stranger and a fired waitress who made very poor financial decisions. Hey, that poor financial decision was the best thing I ever did. Second best, giving me a chance was the first. They held each other in the darkness, two people from impossible backgrounds building an impossible future. And Fiona thought about Grandma Rose's words. You never know when you're entertaining angels unaware. Maybe Seung-hyun hadn't been an angel that night in the rain. Maybe he'd been exactly what he'd seemed, desperate, lost, testing humanity to see if any remained. But he'd found it in her, and she'd found herself in him. Two broken people who'd given each other exactly what they needed. Hope. 9 months later, their daughter was born. They named her Rose, for Fiona's grandmother, for second chance, for the beauty that grows from rain and sacrifice. And as Fiona held her, Seung-hyun's arm around them both, she finally understood what Grandma Rose had tried to teach her. Kindness was never wasted, love was never lost. And sometimes giving away everything you have is exactly how you find everything you need. The fired waitress who'd given her last dollar to a homeless stranger had received a love story in return. Not the fairy tale kind, the real kind, messy and complicated and built on honesty and choice, the kind that lasted, the kind that mattered. And as she looked at her family, her dangerous, devoted husband and their tiny daughter, Fiona knew she'd make the same choice again, would give away everything, would take the risk, would choose love over safety, kindness over caution, hope over fear. Because that rainy night, she'd saved more than a life. She'd saved two souls, his and her own. And that was worth every dollar, every risk, everything. Years later, when Rose asked about how her parents met, they'd tell her the truth about rain and cardboard signs and impossible choices, about how Mama had given everything to a stranger and received the world in return, about how love doesn't always make sense, but it always matters. And Rose would grow up believing in kindness because she'd seen it build empires, would grow up believing in second chances because she was proof they existed, would grow up knowing that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is help someone who can't help you back. That lesson, Grandma Rose's legacy, passed through Fiona to little Rose, was the real treasure, not money or power or safety, but the understanding that humans were meant to help each other. That kindness was revolutionary. That love was worth every risk. The fired black waitress and the secret Korean mafia boss built something beautiful from nothing, from rain and desperation and a final paycheck given freely. They built a family, a life, a legacy of love that proved Grandma Rose had been right all along. You never know when you're entertaining angels unaware. Sometimes they come disguised as homeless strangers. Sometimes they come to test your humanity. And sometimes, if you're very lucky and very brave, they stay forever.